right, I'm Steven Regenold. I'm founder of GearJunkie. I'm a journalist by training and kind of somehow accidentally fell into the kind of marketing landscape, although I still write and review gear and manage an editorial staff, but I certainly involved a lot with projects and marketing. And I'm going to run through who I am, kind of where I came from, my kind of trajectory from journalist, media guy to publisher and pseudo-marketer, and then look at 3 case studies, 3 kind of big projects we built for brands. And then I have 10 kind of macro takeaways at the end as far as things I've learned along the way. So this is GearJunkie. We have been trying to lead the conversation for over 10 years, founded in 2006. Really the last, 8-ish years have been kind of the meat of it. As you'll see, it was kind of a slow launch and trajectory to that. But today we're really known for objective gear reviews. That's kind of the backbone of what we do. Along with trends and news, we really try to break the news and cite the trends in our space. Do big feature stories. That's me on top of a mountain down in Colombia a couple years ago, kind of magazine style. Videos, we produced I think 75 videos last year. We have a studio in Denver. And then we do quite a bit of custom and sponsored content, quite a few giveaways and promotions. We have a full-time one person and a couple other staffers that focus on content commerce. So that's monetizing links and buyer's guides and deals articles. We do influencer campaigns, videos for brands, as well as editorial videos. And then a couple times a year we'll do something IRL. We'll do an event or a tour or an activation. This one on the right was a scavenger hunt in Manhattan with Victorinox Swiss Army. And we did a nationwide tour with Eddie Bauer a couple years ago to like 10 of their stores. And then we do these major custom campaigns for brands. And I'm going to jump into actually packing it out in the Merrill FKT one a little further down, but we've done quite a bit of work with Yeti and several of the other big brands in our space. And a lot of what we do are kind of these big integrated plans that include a media buy plus content, social, video, maybe an event, e-news, and we build sort of a multi-week or even multi-month campaign around kind of a central hub of a project, which is usually a content project. So who am I? I'm that Dowdy guy there, is about a 17-year-old up in the Boundary Waters of Minnesota. Born and raised Minnesota boy, and just always have been into this stuff, and always have been a writer and a storyteller. Today, 5 children, amazingly. Wife, married, happy life. And I've really just built my company by producing good content and building articles and videos and content around things I love. I've sort of stumbled into this role of entrepreneur and business owner over the years of just kind of scaling what I've done. And just to back up for a second, I went to journalism school at the University of Minnesota and kind of cut my teeth on a zine that I created during college called Vertical Jones. I was a big climber at the time. And that was kind of the kernel of what GearJunkie became. I got a kind of real job. My only real job in my life was at this magazine, kind of a business publication. I was associate editor, but it really gave me kind of a peek behind the curtain of what it is to run a publication. So it's just a good sort of grounding in what it is to be a journalist and a media guy. And then that magazine actually shut down, and it sent me off into the world of freelance, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I was 25 years old and launched this newspaper column called GearJunkie and started just building my, both kind of my lifestyle around my job and then also my job around my lifestyle, I guess. So traveling, testing gear, and trying to make some money along the way. I started writing a ton for the local paper in Minneapolis called Star Tribune and just added like a new voice to the conversation around outdoor adventure and gear to kind of the daily newspaper there and got very integrated. I then pitched the New York Times and got into their kind of the inner circle of what they're doing with adventure travel and outdoors, and was kind of their main guy for adventure travel for about 4 or 5 years, and published more than 50 articles, traveled the world. It was pretty amazing. And at this stage in my life, late 20s, early 30s, I was like I said, traveling a few times a month, writing, had a couple small children at home, so trying to balance it all. And kind of a big epiphany hit me very soon after this era, which I'll share here in a second. But I really just spent years traveling, testing gear, and like I said, trying to build a lifestyle around my passion, which was both media and writing and outdoor adventure. Got heavily into this kind of sport of adventure race and ultra and that whole world, and it was really an amazing platform to test gear and build great content and just meet people and meet brands and authentically grow into kind of who I was as a person in this space. And along that whole way, I was building GearJunkie. So it started as a newspaper column, just me, and then started to build it as a company about 10 years ago and hired people to scale what I was doing, really. And today we're 2 offices, Minneapolis and Denver. Denver is our editorial office, and Minneapolis is now the business side. We're a staff of, I think, 17 now, and we've got about 10 contractors that we work with very closely, and trying to make it happen. I kind of divide GearJunkie up into a few platforms, and there's some other pieces of this, but we have sort of the hub of our digital publication. We have video, social, and then syndication. The column's actually still syndicated to print newspapers. You could also probably throw in e-news and events and some other things here, but we think of GearJunkie holistically, not just the .com. And then we work with many of the top brands in our space. So from REI to Yeti, North Face, Hoka, we just really kind of play in this outdoor retailer world and also work with some adjacencies, like we're hopefully closing an account with an auto brand this spring and starting to do more hunt, fish, and RV and kind of that landscape, so adjacent categories. And really the push has always just been to kind of unveil the future of gear, and that's kind of the bedrock, and then from there we do adventure stories, branded content, video, and personality profiles, and all sorts of things. So this was the kind of the moment I mentioned a minute ago with New York Times. I was a pretty successful journalist, and I got invited to go to Mount Everest to cover an expedition as kind of their lead journalist. And what happened was I had a life-changing trip, but also I got my eyes open to the inner workings of, this was 2010, so kind of where media was at that time and where content kind of collided with the advertising marketing space. And it was through this brand Champion, which was what sponsored the expedition, where I got kind of a peek behind the curtain. And the long story short is I got to know sort of what they were doing, saw the big scope of this campaign, and then saw some of the budget numbers behind this versus what I was doing as a journalist, and kind of a light bulb went off. So started to think, how can I build GearJunkie more into something that is beyond just a journalistic, traditional journalistic type publication, and build in marketing and branded sponsored content. And so one of the first branded microsites that we launched actually in 2010 was about this expedition to Everest, with a countdown and a blog, and brought to you by Hanes brand. I think we sold it for $5,000 or $10,000. It was at the time a pretty good sell for us, but and then this was kind of dipping my toe into this space of integrating a brand into what we did with content. And one of our climbers made it to the top, so I didn't quite get there, but I wasn't allowed above the ice fall actually, but got to the top of Everest. And that was, again, kind of a life-changing trip for me, both personally, just to get into the swirl of the Himalaya and the climbing culture, and then also to get into the swirl of what it was to be a Fortune 500 brand building a massive 2-year-long content campaign around this hero project of climbing Mount Everest and a new jacket technology. So fast forward about, 5-6 years later, and we're building all sorts of content projects kind of off of a lot of learnings and experimentations and iterations and failures. And right now, I think this project was 2018 or 19. This project with Hydro Flask is kind of representative of a common content kind of project we do. So I have 3 quick case studies. This is the first one. So we built this project with Hydro Flask, I guess it was last spring, and they were launching a new pack, hydration pack, so a new thing in their category, really wanted to interface with the mountain biking world, and they came to us to help kind of launch this product and build content and buzz around it. And so we proposed I believe a 1 or 2 month plan essentially with a lot of moving parts. And so I'm going to walk through some of those parts right now. So we do direct sale advertising to 95% of our ads are direct sell, and we sell these high impact site skins, and for high CPM, they're very high impact ads. Readers are in the mindset to interact with these ads or have an impression from these ads or an engagement. And so the basis of this kind of plan is usually a media buy. And so for this one in particular, it looks like it was 1.6 million impressions, so kind of a smaller media buy, but it sort of anchored the brand on the site visually. And we probably targeted it to just sort of the cycling section of the site. And then we built a microsite called Single Track Mind. And it was a series of 10 articles around kind of extraordinary people in the mountain biking landscape, brought to you by Hydro Flask, built with GearJunkie. And kind of in the background was this pack. And we focused on the pack more as a piece of the content rather than sort of the focal, or a piece of the landscape versus kind of the focal. We did build a specific video and article about the pack, but a lot of the series was simply building cool content for mountain bikers to engage with, brought to you by this brand. So we did 6 articles, a lab series, which is kind of like looking at the product really closely, a mountain biker's buyer's guide, and then some other things like placing this product in a column called Emerging Gear. And then we built, I think it was 6 or 8 articles just on topics and people in the mountain biking landscape. So pretty straight up, it's just quality journalism in our space brought to you by a brand. And again, sort of associating this brand and the product with both these topics, then the readers that will engage with these articles. And then we built a video just to introduce the pack and sort of went in depth on the features published on GearJunkie and just really explored this from a product standpoint. And then some of the ancillary pieces, the levers we pulled to kind of promote this are obviously social media and e-news and pop notifications, and kind of the one of about 18 different ways that we get the word out on these projects. And then a big social media campaign, which garnered about 6 million impressions, it looks like. So it's kind of example 1. So this was one of the biggest projects we've done. It was called Find Your FKT. Merrell came out with a new shoe that was kind of a hybrid of a fast hiker. And the company came to us and said, we have a new shoe, what should we do this on GearJunkie? And I think we came back with 6 or 7 ideas, kicked it around with the brand, and they wanted to do this project called Find Your FKT. FKT is fastest known time. It's kind of a trend in this space of trying to become the fastest to hike a particular trail or climb a mountain. And like the Hydro Flask project, we built the product into the campaign, but it wasn't kind of the #1 focus. So this project, like I said, is representative of a lot of what we do. That's pretty multifaceted. We built a microsite, a film, I think it was a 30-minute film, so a pretty substantial film. We did a ton of custom content and articles, social e-news, and then again, sort of the bedrock or the background is a display campaign. So the hub of this project was really a microsite, and it was focused around these 9 trails and essentially raising money for these trails for maintenance and upkeep. And these are the trails where people try to set FKTs, so we built content and stories around it. And what we did is we tried to engage all these user groups. So Ice Age Trail, Continental Divide, AT, they all have a fan base, people that have hiked it, they all have trail groups. And our social media people just spent days talking to these entities to get them to rally their troops to vote for their trail, because the top trail would win $10,000. So obviously our readers could vote. So it was essentially, I don't remember exactly what the ask was, but it was something like pick your favorite trail. It was pretty easy, and enter an email. So we built this, and then you get a chance to win some shoes. So that was kind of the brand association. And it was really successful. I think we had probably tens of thousands of votes and ended up awarding, I believe it was the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin, funny enough. So So this was the page. Enter which trail you want to help support, upload a video, email, and then we also curate all the kind of the UGC content down below, so you can then look through all the shots of people on their favorite trail. So kind of a simple traditional contest, but it had a few important adjacencies, one being to donate money to these trails, so there's a cause thing. People are more apt to get involved if you're doing some good. And we want to do good as an organization too, so we committed over $10,000 of our own budget to this giveaway. And then we gave away shoes to people that entered. I think we gave away 25 pairs of shoes. So there was a lot of prizes, I think weekly for many weeks in a row. So there's a lot of engagement and interaction with people involved in this project. And so this is some of the examples of, like, the Green Mountain Club on their Twitter would put out a shout out for this, et cetera, et cetera. So we, during the course of this campaign, tracked all of the interaction from all of the other organizations and rolled that up into a report at the end to show kind of Merrill the macro effect of this campaign. And then on our site, we created kind of these house ads to sort of get readers to this piece of our property. And we had this microsite that we built in-house that was kind of the hub of it all. And then at the end of the day, these are some of the big stats. So I guess we had about 18,000 votes and 2.5 photos uploaded. So, and then we do like this kind of hours spent on content, so 948 hours on this microsite. So one of our big focuses at GearJunkie is, like, how long are people engaging for? It's not necessarily, you know, what is it, 28,000 page views. It's not massive, but each one of those 28,000 people was on the page for 5 minutes. That's pretty massive. So those two stats are important to kind of look at together, because you can have 300,000 page views, but if someone just clicks there and they're out of there in 10 seconds, it's a pretty cheap engagement. Or you can have 5,000 page views, but people are writing an essay or uploading a video, and it's very quality. So then we hired a kind of partner film company that we worked with before and built, like I said, I think it was a 30-minute documentary on the origins of Fastest Known Time, and, you know, spent, I don't even know, probably $20,000 to $30,000 producing this film. So it was a big deal. It was a big piece of the budget, but it was also one of the big deliverables. And we built this film over the course of weeks, and then published it on GearJunkie, and then submitted to film festivals and had live screenings and made a big deal out of the film as well. Obviously promoted across our site and social, and then we also had sort of a PR campaign, so the film was shared on you know, outside in different media partners we have, and then some of the trail organizations. And I think we had, you know, about 200,000 views during the campaign period. It's probably more than that now. And again, kind of that hour spent on the content was very solid. Once someone's on this film, they're watching it, and that's what we want to see. So a couple final pieces is we built just some custom articles around some of the products, but mainly about the trails and FKT, brought to you by Merrill. So in all, we built, I guess, published 9 articles. And again, that kind of 2.5 minutes on page it's good. That's kind of average for our site. So we're hoping that people are on something and engaging for a little while. And then finally, just a ton of social promotion and e-news promotion. I don't even know, dozens of social posts. And maybe one thing to note here is that with the social media, even though this is all the same campaign, you can see kind of the diversity there. So we're looking at the people involved, the products, the trails, some of the news, some of the contests. So because this was so multifaceted, we had kind of an excuse to talk to our audience a lot about it via a lot of different angles. If it would have just been a shoe giveaway, you can't do 40 social media posts on a shoe giveaway. But you have a film and you have athletes, and so I think that's part of why we make some of these projects pretty diverse. So we did things like Facebook Live and an REI store, I think, just to look at the shoe, and just built some buzz amongst our readers and the brands. Obviously just promotion our e-news, and then also this big high-impact media on the homepage of GearJunkie that really drove impressions and engagement, and then just clicks through to the microsite too. So that was Find Your FKT, kind of one of the more multifaceted projects that we've done, and a lot to get our arms around as a company. But we had 2 full-time people managing it the whole time, and we have writers and video people, and so it is a team effort. I think a couple big takeaways are, and I'll get into this in a minute, but selling something like that, you just got to crystallize it into one thing, because you can't sell that kind of, it's like an octopus. But once you need to sell it just in a crystallized vision, and then communicate how you're going to build this macro integrated plan via just bullet points and timelines. And the sell is difficult on these projects, is what I'm getting at. But once you get rolling, they're pretty cool. Any questions on that guy, or should I jump ahead? Yeah.
How long was the time from the time they contacted you?
I think they contacted us in like, October or something. I think the project ended in like June or something. So, and probably October to like January was kind of the sell. And we flew out to their office and built a plan and presented it, and so it was a long process to sell. And then we hit the ground running and probably had a month or 2 of build up, and then we launched it, and I think the whole campaign was 2 or 3 months. So pretty quick for something like that, especially with that film. I do remember now that we were just like sketching to get the film done, but I don't know, kind of our mentality is really, we're just journalists that get up and produce content every day. We do 30 to 40 stories a week, and so we're kind of fast and nimble by nature, and apply that to these bigger projects too. Okay, one more example, and then I'll talk about what I've learned from this stuff. So packing it out, it's actually my favorite project we've ever done. And it was kind of a 3-year effort. 2 of the years were sponsored. The first year, I don't remember if REI gave us any money, but they were kind of associated with it. But the backstory is that, well, I guess the macro of it is this. Over the course of a couple years, we had about 20 million impressions, published 26 articles, did 6 videos, over 100 social posts, and then we did 13 cleanups around the country, and then 11 store events at REI stores. So this thing was really massive. It took up a lot of our time, and it was actually, I think the first year we did it, it wasn't that profitable because we put so much time and resources into it. It was a big budget, but once you break it down with all these events and so forth, you realize, wow, we did a lot for that budget. So I think the second year we streamlined it, and you're always working on this stuff. So it started with these 3 who are from out here. I think one of them might actually be from the Asheville area, but it's Paul and Seth, and I don't know the third guy's name because he's not involved the other years, but these kind of young dirtbags who were hiking, and they found like a mattress, and they're like, well, that's bullshit, and they pulled this mattress out of the AT, and it kind of gave them this idea to just start packing out garbage. And we did a story on these guys, and it went kind of viral, and then we contacted them, and we're like, hey, can we sponsor you or help you out? And just built kind of relationship with them. And the first year, I think, sent them some gear and maybe a little bit of money, but just sort of a loose relationship. But the article went very viral, and because they're doing an awesome thing, and encouraging others to just, instead of just leaving no trace, why don't you actually make a difference and pack stuff out if you see garbage on the trail? So the next year, they hiked the PCT, and we were fully involved at REI to be our kind of brand partner, and we had kind of a 6-month plan to engage with these guys. So we essentially sponsored their hike, and they helped us build content and organize cleanups. We did a film with these guys that actually won a big award, and built a big content project around their PCT hike, Pacific Crest Trail, which is like 2,600 miles, I think. So it took them all summer. And then in 2017, Paul, one of the original, and damn, I forget your name. Abby, thank you. Abby's awesome. Should never forget her name. They biked across America and did an REI store tour and then trail cleanups along the way. So they were sick of hiking and they wanted to get on some bikes. So So we built out, again, a big plan around that whole year. And so for that year in particular, we built a microsite and articles to kind of announce it, and then just started to build buzz around these trail cleanups and events across the US. They're all sponsored by REI or at REI stores. And then we built a microsite to kind of map both where they were and then how much trash they'd cleaned up along the way, and consistently engage our readers around that. So the PCT year, actually, backing up for a second, we again hired a film crew, and they lived with them on the trail for a few days and built this film, and it actually won a few awards and was on the Banff World Tour. So really neat experience for us, and kind of a lot of bonus buzz for REI. This was not really part of the package, but this big film brought to you by REI got seen, I don't know how many, probably hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know, Mike, you have a better scope on this, but these film tours have many stops, and it was a definite value add, let's put it that way. And we also just got some good PR from all these efforts. So obviously it's a cool thing, packing out trash and cleaning up and keeping trails beautiful. And so kind of no shortage of both social media and influencers and media that wanted to kind of promote it and talk about it. And a lot of the cleanups were like this, just 10 or 20 people at some trailhead, so it wasn't a huge deal, but we'd do kind of a call out to readers, or I think this one is actually during the OR show maybe, so it's some industry people. But just get a small group of people out there and do a couple pieces of social media and spend a couple hours cleaning up trash. It's pretty simple. And kind of the net of it was that packing out became kind of a movement. So it grew bigger than what GearJunkie was doing or what REI was supporting, and there was just hundreds or thousands of people on social media using the hashtags and picking up trash when they're hiking. So, I mean, kind of the coolest result that I could see is just making a difference and an impact and creating something of a little bit of a movement. So that's packing it out. Again, any questions? Otherwise, I can jump into what I've learned.
Is there a particular goal for REI getting involved with that, other than just goodwill?
Yeah, it was to be associated with this organization and with cleanups, and to get content published with their brand logo on it. But also a big part of it was we did stop at, I think, 10 REI stores and did a presentation at each one, and then had these. So that was a big part of their buy-in, was like, we're going to do a bunch of live events for you guys. So, but yeah, it was a branding project for them. There's I think they rode Novara bikes, so that was a little bit of product, but that's the REI house brand, or was. But beyond that, yeah, pretty much just a branding play.
Is it still carrying on now? Or
Kind of. We're trying to get them to hike another 2,600 miles for us, but it's a big ask. We actually are repitching it. Yeah, there's certainly people that still engage with the hashtag and pack out trash, and we actually did repitch it for this summer to a couple brands, so we'll see if a brand jumps onto it. And that's maybe a good side point, is a lot of these big projects we do, we wouldn't be able to do them without brand support. So we certainly can't commit as GearJunkie to organizing 10 cleanups and store events and a 30-minute film just on our editorial budget. So a brand sponsor like that allows us to do something big. I think our readers love it, and it's some profit for us, and it helps the brand. So it's been a win-win for us. Okay, so I tried to just kind of crunch this down and think, what have I learned? And here are kind of 10 big lessons. I think number one, just as journalists and people in media, it's like maintain a standard of quality with everything we do, and whether it's sponsored or editorial or social media or e-news. And I know it's been mentioned a few times at the conference here, but here, whether it's marketing or editorial, it kind of needs to live up to a standard. Otherwise, it's not good for anyone. The readers don't like it, the brand's going to be disappointed, and it's going to get less engagement. So really just maintaining a standard of quality across your whole brand, whether it's sponsored or native or organic or social or whatever it is across the platform. This one really is important. So as a publisher, at least. So for many years, we would have a big idea and we would pitch it to a brand. It's like, hey, North Face, you know, mixed climbing is really trending. We love mixed climbing. We have this amazing series. Can we do a project? And they always say, that is actually a really cool idea, but our our winter campaign is actually on backcountry skiing. So it just doesn't fit, guys. Damn, we'll come with another idea next year. So we reverse engineered that after several fails and thought, okay, hey, North Face, what are you guys doing this winter? Oh, backcountry skiing? Okay, give us a sec. We'll come back with 10 ideas around that. Not only that, but around your specific product and the campaign, imagery from your Facebook page that shows you how it would look on GearJunkie. So just aligning with what a brand is doing in their marketing campaign gets you in the door so much better than trying to push your own agenda. And it's hard to get that from brands, but it just makes a huge difference. The name game is big. I was kind of geeking out when Andy was talking about headlines. I think headlines are so important, and that's what I'm saying with the name game, like what you call a project or a video or an article. But in this case, I'm talking like the big projects. So over the years, we've done single track mine, fast and light, packing it out, great urban outdoors. What have we done lately? Adventure grant. Anyways, we come up with these ideas, and then how do we crystallize that in a name that is memorable and catchy? And the deal is, what this does is, obviously for a reader or anybody involved, a good name is important to click and get engaged. But also before that, at the point of sale, when you're talking to a client, if you have a good name, they're like, yeah, I want to be involved in your light series. It sounds awesome. So we just find like distilling it down to a really good name just kind of works on the sales side, and then also when you produce it. And what that comes down to is just, instead of trying to use a paragraph to explain something, it's crystallized in 3 or 4 words. People like to be communicated to quickly. So KPI, I mentioned a second ago, but we go into these projects asking a brand, like, what do you want out of it? Do you want email signups? Do you want Instagram followers? Do you want live events? Do you want content that we can build that you can repurpose? And a lot of times they want a lot of that. But sometimes there's like, no, we just want email signups, and then you build everything around that kind of premise. And we can get pushback too if we're like, well, email's great, but what about we also do a 5-part content series? Because so we do get pushback, but at least understanding where a brand is coming from. And if they say we just want to sell, 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 a lot of times we'll actually turn those projects down because we're not like a catalog to sell shit. Like we kind of are, but it's not, unless it's a new and innovative thing that we can really get behind and promote it in a different way. Yeah, we might feature it, but we're not going to build a big project around trying to sell your thing. So it's just not our vehicle. More and more, though, companies do want to use GearJunkie as a sales vehicle, and that's why we built our affiliate department and now do 3 or 4 articles a week that are essentially buyer's guides and deals articles and things like that, that are very transparently, hey, reader, if you want a deal or you want to see the latest gear that you can buy, click here, go to REI, backcountry, whatever. So identifying what the KPI, the key performance indicator for a campaign is, and using that kind of as the kernel of what you're doing. Managing expectations. So again, years ago, we would build these projects, put it out into the universe and hope for the best. And sometimes they'd get 1 million views and sometimes 1,000 views. And it's really hard to sell a project that way, and it's hard to manage a project that way. And so we essentially backward engineer that now and promise a certain amount of video views and ad impressions and articles published and make everything quantitative and have those expectations very transparent up front, and oftentimes offer several kind of scenarios where there's maybe 3 budget points and here are kind of the impressions and views and you'll get at each. So just being really clear with the brand up front what they're going to get for this project at this budget level. Get integrated. So basically like you said, like you guys saw, a lot of these projects have social articles, videos, maybe an event, an ad buy. And that's kind of been really successful for GearJunkie, is just building these integrated projects is what we call it. So it's just a multifaceted. You could sub in that word multifaceted. Instead of just selling a sweepstakes with one sign up and one thing, which by the way we also do, but for the bigger projects, they're integrated. 360 projects. This also has been kind of a theme here, but transparency is key. So you don't want a reader to think that we're building an article on a Merrell shoe that is a piece of editorial review when it's actually paid for by the brand. So we're very careful with that. We label everything. We don't use kind of subjective language in product articles unless it's a non-paid review. We have some in-house best practices. And a lot of it just has to do with kind of the UI and the disclaimers, or I shouldn't say disclaimers, but just the verbiage on articles. This article brought to you by REI. So just staying transparent is key for both legal reasons and just kind of appreciating a reader, and then also just the longevity of what your brand is. So make a template. Essentially, those 3 projects that we looked at were not so much in this fold, but many of the projects we produce are kind of a template. It's maybe 5 articles, a 2 million impression media buy, 10 social media posts, etc. So they're templatized, and that mainly helps in-house on the production side, because these are kind of a whirlwind to produce and manage. And if we have sort of project type A, B, and C in-house, and we sell them that way, it's just easier to manage. And also some of our content, we have something called Gear Lab, which is a kind of deep dive into a new product, and we have some franchises that are templates, and it just makes, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. That's been a powerful thing for us. So rights, obviously trademark, copyright, anything else, just, this isn't a big deal necessarily because we tread these issues all the time, but also just being transparent and upfront with the brand around who kind of owns what at the end of the day, and can you guys put this in your trade show booth or cut it up and use it in a commercial, and so just being transparent with that, or not really transparent, being upfront and deliberate about rights and copyrights and trademark upfront. And for us, really we almost always just give something called shared rights, which means we own it, but we're happy to share it with the brand, and if you want to use it for your packaging or your trade show, let's talk, and it's probably 90% of the time fine. And one more is just make an impact. So I think also just a theme this week is like there's just a lot of noise out there, and how do you break through that noise? You do something different, whether it's bigger or weirder or just a twist on something. And I always just challenge my guys to like, how do we add to this bigger conversation? So with our Hydro Flask series, we could have written about the top 10 trails in whatever, the American West for mountain bikers, and it would have got lost in the shuffle. Instead, we focused on, you know, a paraplegic athlete, a guy with a NICA team, whatever, like human stories and drama and trends and news, and added to the bigger conversation. And we try to do that with the sort of macro formula of our projects as well. So that's what I got for you. Thanks for listening.